Hey witches, Tiffany here on Bewitching.Bemused. I'm back today with a little bit more of a casual, personal thing. Please bear with me right now. I am working on the setup, and with it now being almost summer, I'm constantly getting blasted with sun through this window, but that's because this curtain is broken. So I'm working on getting that replaced so we have a little bit better of a setting, but for now we just gotta work with what we got. Anyway, today's video is on things that I would go back and tell my younger self when I first started my practice if I could. Now, I honestly can't remember if I've done a video similar to this before. It is possible that I did. I honestly don't remember, but I figured, you know what? It's probably changed over time just because my beliefs, my spirituality, my practice, everything changes over time. So I'm sure there's things that I released in videos 2 years ago that I just go, whoa, that's different today. So if this seems a little familiar, then bear with me. Some of these things are probably the same and some of them are probably different. I would tell myself to stop spending so much money on books. Now, luckily, this is something that I figured out pretty early in once I realized how much of my budget was going towards books. And then I started getting creative of looking at book trades and going to the library, finding out where I could use library apps and audiobooks and things like that to get it for free or a little bit more affordable than brand spanking new books. And in that same vein, I would also tell myself to calm down, and finish one book before starting another. The information will still be there when you're done. Number 2 is don't shoehorn yourself into a coven or a group of practitioners just for the sake of having witchy friends. A few years into my practice is when I had sort of stepped aside from Wicca. I had done that a while back, but it was really where I started to accept that I am very much an eclectic practitioner. And when I was living in Orange County, I really wanted to find groups, especially because I'm living in this whole new area. So I was also just in general trying to make new friends, meet new people. And so I was looking for a coven, and I did a couple of brief meetups, but it just made me really sad because I kept looking up these covens and these groups and seeing that none of them were really eclectic. They didn't align with my beliefs. And sometimes I'd kind of just force myself anyway. And now there's nothing wrong with meeting up with people who maybe you guys don't fully agree on things, and not necessarily in a bad way, like you disagree, but just that you have different beliefs, and that's totally fine because it's great to get different perspectives. But if it's a group that has a very specific path, a very specific tradition, don't just go and be like, I'll see if this works. Trust me, don't waste your time. It won't. You might pick up a few friends along the way, but overall joining that particular magical practitioner group or coven just isn't going to work out. Number 3 is don't get caught up in the influencer hype. No, they do not 24/7 live, breathe, eat, sweat, and bleed witchcraft and paganism. As much as that appears to be the case, you're only getting a very brief window into their life. You're getting their highlight reel. And so you're comparing yourself to that, which is, that's the major point of this. Just don't compare yourself to others, especially on the internet. And you're looking at yourself behind the scenes and looking at their highlight reel and going, oh, I don't do all that. I don't have all that. Oh, especially when it comes to witchy decor. That was a big thing I was so insecure about for some reason, because I kept watching these YouTubers, especially when I first started my YouTube, and I'm still jealous about it. I'm like, I need more. But I look at their setup and I just think, wow, they've got all this really cool stuff. And especially my beginning videos, my walls are just sort of blank. Slowly I started getting in some candles here and some little decor pieces. And then there's some decor pieces that I really just tried to, somebody gifted to me or something, and I try to make them work, and now I look back at those videos and kind of cringe because I'm like, that's not my style at all. So yeah, at the end of the day, just don't compare your practice to anybody else's, whether it's the aesthetic part, the amount of time that you have to devote, your beliefs. Don't compare. It's great to learn, but don't sit there and feel like you're lesser or anything like that. You could say, I know less, and so I'm here to learn, but that's very different than feeling like you are inadequate in some way because this person appears to live their lifestyle more grander and more witchcraftier than you. Number 4, I think we're on 4. Sorry if I mix it up. Like I said, this is casual. Don't mistake the map for the landscape. This has a twofold meaning. First of all, as much as you read, as much as you study, those are just maps. you need to explore the landscape by actually practicing. Second of all, you need to understand that these books are other people's maps, okay? So the way that you are perceiving their landscape is not gonna be quite the same as the way that they do, first of all, because I mean, it's like playing a game of telephone almost. Yeah, you can still learn a lot, but there's a lot of little things that are going to be missed. Not to mention, your landscape is going to be very different. So while yes, I always highly encourage reading and studying and watching amazing YouTubers such as myself, and doing all of that, learning as much as you can, absorbing as much as you can, and getting a ton of different perspectives, nothing beats outright personal experience. Number 5 is to just be confident in your abilities. Even if you fail, even if you have 20 spells that don't work in a row, you are learning something in your failure, okay? You have to remember that everybody, the most successful practitioners, the most, well-known pagans, all started where you started. Even if they were raised in a pagan family or a family of magical practitioners, okay, wow, well, great. They just happened to learn it a little bit earlier in life than you did. Doesn't mean that you won't eventually reach their level. For me, 6 and 7 is a two-parter. When I first started, and pretty much for the last decade, I'm not sure how far back it stretches, but definitely at least for the last couple of decades, crystals and tarot have been super popular, especially because they're very accessible for people who are they don't necessarily identify as magical practitioners or pagans or nature-based worshipers or witches or what have you. There's a lot of people who are just sort of into spirituality or new age practices. They may be agnostic or identify with a completely different religion. They just find them interesting or fun, or that, they get something out of it still. So crystals and tarot, I want to put this into like two parts. Those were very popular, and I really tried. I tried, and I feel like I wasted so much time trying to make them work. So not only did I waste a ton of money on crystals, we'll make that number 6. Don't waste so much money on damn crystals, because they're just not necessarily your thing. Personally, I found along my journey, I found ones here and there that I really connected with, and I collected those as I went. But early in, I spent way too much money buying a bunch of pieces that just I never really got anything out of. I never really felt a connection with. And honestly, there's just nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't mean that people who do feel that connection are doing anything wrong. It just had no place in my practice. Nowadays it does, but still very minimally. And then number 7 is tarot. There's so many other forms of divination out there. Don't try to shoehorn tarot in if it's just not your thing. Number 8 is to be more consistent overall. Not only is this really good advice for a witchcraft practice or for, kind of generating some meaning in your life out of a particular spirituality, but it's also just really good life advice in general. In the beginning, I was really caught up in the need to read, need to study, that my meditation game was like, meh. Like I mentioned earlier, my study was kind of all over the place because I was so excited. And don't get me wrong, that did pay off in the long run. I learned a lot about a lot of different areas, but I could have been a little bit less manic about it and a little bit more organized and just like finish a book and then move on to the next one. Consistency also with general things like therapy. Therapy has had such a huge impact on my practice. A lot of people probably have a similar experience because it does affect, journaling and shadow work and things like that do affect your practice and your spirituality, just as your practice and your spirituality affect your mental health. I just in general needed to be more consistent with these things. In a second, number 10 is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to say for number 9, finally, and one of the most important ones is don't be so scared. Just do the stuff anyway. Yes, it's great to have certain boundaries and put certain safety protocols in place, do your due diligence and your research, but at the end of the day, just do the thing that scares you. That's going to be the most liberating thing. It'll also be the most fulfilling, and it's what you'll learn the most out of, not only in regards to your practice, but also about yourself. So whether it's a particular practice that you really want to try, but it just seems a little scary, like using a Ouija board, reaching out to ancestors, working with demons. Like, again, just do your due diligence, but it's gonna be totally worth it. And you might try it and go, it's just not for me, and that's totally fine. But overcome your fears, whether they are from your upbringing, whether they are from a past religion that you used to be a part of, whether they're just from Hollywood horror films or fear-mongering community members, which I've talked about at length. Like, just, you know what? Try it anyway. Number 10 is a little special because it's something that I would tell myself, you are doing this so right, don't change it, keep, yes, perfect. And that would be, no, you're right, you're doing great, you do not need to study a specific path or tradition. Like I said, I did start in Wicca, but it didn't take long for me to realize this is really not for me. And I explored a few different types of Wicca, as well as the sort of general Wicca. I realized pretty quickly that while traditions can be great and they are perfect for some people, they are a product of their time and region in which they were created. So Wicca is a product originally, like Gardnerian Wicca is part of, 1950s English culture. And so that to me doesn't really apply today. That I'm way oversimplifying it. There's so much more to that than what I'm including here. But I'm just saying, it doesn't necessarily serve a purpose for everybody, and not everybody is going to connect with a specific tradition ever. You might keep searching your whole life and just never find something that feels like the correct fit for you, or it might feel like a correct fit for a while, and then it's time to move on. So what I say is, and this was something I was very much worried about, I knew about eclecticism, I was well aware of that style of practice, but it still concerned me because I felt a little too like a blob just free floating through the world of paganism and witchcraft. I liked this idea of having something specific to focus on and study, but at the end of the day, it turned out that didn't really work for me. But I also love having access to so many different bits of knowledge and practices. So yes, I would say go ahead and do your study, go ahead and check out different traditions and paths, but at the end of the day, if you want to take what works for you and leave the rest behind, of course, in a respectful manner, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I would love to hear the things that you guys would share with your little witchling self, whether that was years ago, months ago, weeks ago, or decades ago. Things can change in a short period of time, so even if it was just days ago, tell me what you would share with your younger self when you first started your path. Leave those in the comments below. If you want some more of these like kind of casual, my personal experience vlog style videos, I have a whole playlist right here just for that.